GM, 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 G fucking M. Let's go. Thursday, 25th of Jan, altcoin requests. Let's go. Let's fucking go. Let's do some alts. Happy birthday, Alk. GM. Swiss, good morning. Very good. All right. So, today at 5 p.m. How many have we got here? Bum, 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 bum. Lots of them. Plenty of them. Lots to get through. Got a bunch from last week as well, which I'd like to get through. Hopefully I'll have time, but basically, we'll do whatever I can. We'll do whatever I can. We'll get as many done as possible. We'll see. So, hope everyone's well. Hope everyone's focusing on leveling up outside the markets as well. The majority of what you're going to do this year is going to be sit on your hands. Really. Sit on your hands. Right? Like, it reminds me of the old Jesse Livermore quote. Money is made by sitting, not trading. That's definitely not his fucking quote. There we go. Oh, you twat. After spending many years in Wall Street and after making and losing millions of dollars, I want to tell you this. It was never my thinking that made the big money for me. It was always my sitting. Got that? My sitting tight. It takes a certain amount of... It takes a bit of almost faith, belief in your process and what you're doing. The vast majority of the gains you'll make is by buying and then not selling. And so how do you fill that time in between? This is like the uncomfortable truth for some people. If you bought, let's say you bought Bitcoin at 15k back in December 2022, what could you have done to make it go up faster? Nothing. It's now at 40. It went as high as 49. Your portfolio's up. But in reality, you didn't have to do anything. And that's both the biggest challenge and that's the beauty of it. Don't we all want to make money for doing nothing? Now, of course, it's not making money for doing nothing because to even get in that position of being able to buy it at that point, you need to do a lot of work to understand how to analyze the market and your emotions and understand the cycles and the nature of human emotions. There's a lot of groundwork that goes into it. But after all the years and years and years of groundwork that I've put into trading, it's funny to come back around and realize that what I need to do, as I know now for the last couple of cycles, is just to get positioned and do fuck all. Do nothing. Nothing with that core. And most people try and overcomplicate it because it doesn't feel right. They feel as if they're not trading or they're not trying to make money more, that they're somehow not doing what they should. But for all of you realize this, you'll do days and weeks and months and years of groundwork to then put yourself into position where you can buy at the right time and sell at the right time. But in between that, you have to do nothing. So focus always on making yourself better. That can be in the markets too. Do more backtesting, build more systems, learn more about the monetary system, learn more about crypto as a whole, what it's trying to solve, learn more about psychology in and outside the market. And of course, like I said in my daily lesson a few days ago, physically improve yourself, take up a skill, get better at something, get stronger, get bigger, get faster, get fitter, lose weight. All of these things are not just good for you in terms of keeping you distracted and stopping you from fucking panic selling your bags or selling too soon or any of that. They're also improving you as a person. So that's important. GM. And as for Bitcoin, it's we've got a bit of I think the market just needs to get through. I'm still of the opinion that we can bounce back into the close, but the market is still running through this typical pattern where the majority of the weakness comes during the New York session. We've handled it pretty well so far. right? So from over here, there's been a bit of selling, but it's mostly been absorbed so far. I'm not sure if it'll take this low out. It might. What I've noticed for sure is that the selling is decreasing each day. You can see this just from the price action itself, right? So from very subtle change, but an important change, from being down to down to down to down to down to down, we've now gone sideways for Tuesday session, Wednesday session, and now Thursday session. That's a subtle, but it's a real shift. The market is at least starting to attempt to move towards a more of a consolidation in terms of the ETFs, and which makes sense. It's not going to go down forever. This might just be consolidation before more downside. That's always a possibility. But if you want the market to go up, it has to first stop going down. So we are moving in the right direction, right? It's no longer going down, it's now going sideways. So yes, it can go down more, but for it to go up, it has to go stop going down first. So I like to think we're on the right path for that, but who knows? Maybe the selling as well. Like the selling isn't coming from the ETFs, right? It's like I've said, it's all the speculators who are taking profit on their positions, as they should. The fact that this is happening during the New York session is more a symptom, I think, of people just not wanting to buy. People just not wanting to buy so much during the New York hours because they think that the ETF flows are overwhelming. Because what I'm noticing from what I can see on the flows is a general lack of interest in buying between the hours of 9:30 and 4 in New York time, which is just the New York session, Monday to Friday. So it's more so, I think it's like an absence of demand rather than an overwhelming amount of supply. And that's good. Because once people realize this, look, if there was overwhelming supply, you would know. Right? The selling, even by Grayscale, like it's significant, but it's not what everyone's making it out to be. Everyone's making it out to be like this huge thing. I don't see that. I see it as just being average or slightly above average selling, but for every day, I think until yesterday, the inflows were much greater than the outflows. So it's not Grayscale doing this. And I think the market will eventually realize that. They'll realize, okay, the ETF selling, all that fear around it has probably mostly subsided. And then that might encourage people to step back on the bid again and start buying. But we'll see. So, Revolution GM. Print Protocol. This one's going to be on Dex Screener, no doubt. It's probably here somewhere. Print. I'll just... Right. Okay. Shitcoin launched, ran up, double top, consolidating. I mean, this looks quite like the Harry Potter Obama chart, right? Where you had your first run up. It's just happening on a much faster time scale over a few days. First run up, second touch, try to go again. Equally, I wouldn't be surprised if this continues higher into a new leg or just bleeds out. Depends entirely upon, how much mind share the project can attract. Do people give a fuck? That's like the number one thing. Do people actually care? I'm not sure they will about any of these new fangled things. I'm always, I always lean towards the side of this is just dog shit, scam until proven otherwise. So, trading wise, I don't trade shit coins like this. It's just not my game. But if you're going to trade anything, then you just buy support, which isn't here. So don't buy where we are currently. I mean, buy at support if you're going to buy at support, and sell at resistance if you're going to sell at resistance, right? So don't buy up here and buy down there if it holds. But honestly, I don't think that the market, Solana shitcoins are just being spun up every few minutes. So which ones will end up being good or capturing attention or market share, I don't know. Miller, can you look at Gala? Sure can. So Gala, we'll zoom out to the weekly on this. Just a dreadful coin. Nothing particularly interesting to me about Gala. Really weak bounce off the lows. So with any of these ones, like I talk about, it's made a low, then a high, then a lower low, a lower high, a lower low. Right, it went down below. This is a lower high. So until the market proves otherwise, this is going to go to a new low. Now, the way the market can prove otherwise is by making a new high. So if the market goes up into that new high and then pulls back, well, now it's had an actual shift to where it's a low, high, higher low, higher high, higher low. But Gala's not there yet. And there's plenty of coins, plenty of projects that are there, that are doing that. And so to me, they're the better ones to focus on. HK, ETH just dipping back down into its weekly bands. So for me on ETH, it is making higher highs and higher lows all the way. So low, high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. So I'd expect a higher low to form somewhere. Ideally, you would like to see, depending on how the next few weeks go, you'd like to see it like holding the bands and staying in this area and then going higher, which I think ETH probably will do on balance. But again, it's just moving at a kind of snail's pace. And I wouldn't get overly bearish on ETH. It doesn't mean that it's short-term bullish either. And so you just need to let the market sort itself out. ETH BTC is probably weakening down quite a bit as well, because I think Bitcoin's really been outperforming it. Yeah. So ETH BTC is doing its usual thing, where people are probably going to start talking about ETH going to zero again. But on a weekly, ETH had a really strong reversal. And I do think that low holds. If it doesn't, then ETH is just a horrendous shitcoin and is the absolute piece of trash that we all think it is, or at least that I think it is. But being a piece of shit and not being as good as Bitcoin doesn't mean it won't outperform Bitcoin at certain times. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly an ETH bull. I think everyone knows that. But I do still think that the bottom is more likely to be in for ETH than not against Bitcoin, at least in the short term. But we'll see how that goes over the next little while. Adam wants to see AMP. So much the same as Gala, but AMP is a little bit more bullish, or at least potentially. Where it had a low, high, lower low, lower high, lower low, but then has made a high. So it's broken back above there. It's showing the first signs of wanting to shift, but it needs to set a higher low and then make another high. So if AMP can do that, then it's shifting its structure back to something more bullish. But again, for a lot of these, especially these coins that have been around since last cycle, right? AMP launched in mid 2021, at least on Coinbase. It was probably around before that. But these coins that have been through a full cycle, they just have so much that they need to do before they can be considered to be bullish. And a lot of this stuff just will never reclaim it'll just never reclaim its 2021 levels, because a lot of it is just as simple as the price was far too high relative to the actual underlying demand. And a lot of this stuff, because of the bull market that we had, was just mispriced. You know, we had a crazy bull market where everything was valued probably at many multiples more than it should be, all else being equal. And so, you know, I think a lot of this stuff is going to end up really underperforming. And, you know, for something for something like AMP, you know, can it make a move up at some point? Yeah, but if that's all AMP does, then it's just not a good hold. And you can see, even when we've had our little phase of up only, like AMP has struggled to make any kind of move off the lows. So it doesn't look to me like there's been any sustained accumulation for this throughout the bear market. So nothing would make me think that AMP is going to perform better than, just for example, we'll use a cash because I talk about it a lot. But when you look at a cash, so all the way along since the bear market, it's at high, low, higher, high, higher, low, higher, high, higher, low, all the way up. So clearly there's been accumulation here. Clearly there's a lot more bullish impulse on something like AKT. So when you then compare it to AMP, my question would be, why would I own AMP instead of owning a cash? Is there a valid reason to? I don't see one. And generally with coins like this, what it ends up being is people just have their bags, and because they're holding their bags since last cycle, they want to just keep holding them, hoping it comes back. But that's just a sunk cost fallacy, meaning you're so invested already that you don't want to take the pain of selling, even though when you're objective about it, you can easily say that AMP is just a worse coin than a cash. And it's a worse coin than Solana, it's a worse coin than Link, it's a worse coin than AVAX, or any of these coins that have gone up a lot more. So you just have to ask yourself, why do I still own this? Do I still own this just because I bought it and that's it? But like, just because you bought something doesn't mean it's going to go back up. So the way I view that is, do I see signs of smart money or just anyone accumulating it? And to me, I don't. Right? The only time AMP could even muster up a little bounce since the second leg, here's the biggest red flag. So most coins bottomed out in January. Like, most good coins haven't gone back near their lows of 2022, and they made higher lows. But AMP had a big squeeze up, big push, and then it retraced the whole thing, went to new lows, bleeding down into fucking zero. And then once Bitcoin had its big rally and the whole market started to go up, of course AMP went up. But again, it just looks like another exit pump for whales who've decided to start selling. Just ask yourself, why is this gone to two new lower lows since its January pump, when just pick literally anything, right? Just pick Solana. Solana bottomed in December. And since then, it's only made higher lows. Higher low, and obviously the big run. So they're just better coins. They're just better. You can't fight market structure. Market structure is king. And there's always a reason. The reason is in the charts, though. You don't need to worry about, even like with Bitcoin, you don't need to worry about recession and inflation and the employment data or GDP. You don't need to worry about any of that. You just look at the chart. Is the chart going up or down on a higher time frame? If it's going up, that means the buying pressure is exceeding the selling pressure, regardless of what people might say on the news. Just like, and the same thing counts in reverse, just like whenever we go down in a bear market, and this was true all the way through 2022, like, people were coping super hard on Bitcoin, and I love Bitcoin, but Bitcoin clearly wasn't bullish in 2022. And so all the way down, at every little bounce, there was reasons, we're back, this is it, that's the bottom, it must be, we swept it out, this is the bottom, it's the bottom. But if it's still going down, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that Michael Saylor's buying more. It doesn't matter that the economy should be accommodative, or money printing, or the chart will tell you. So the chart tells me AMP. Other people don't care about it, so why would I? Virtual visions. Virtual versions. Yeah. To me, it just looks like a scam pump, right? So there actually are signs of accumulation here, where it was sort of grinding up, and some signs that there was accumulation forming, but it looks to be just a scam pump, right? Where you get this one big fucking squeeze up based on, I don't know, probably some news. Did they launch some incentive, or was there a big partnership or whatever? But this isn't organic demand, right? When price goes from fucking 0.05 all the way up to 0.21, so when it goes 4x in one day, that's not a sign of an efficient market. Now, of course, the markets aren't efficient, and that's where our edge comes from. But if it did all this, ask yourself why. What caused price to go here? And what's going to stop price from just going all the way back? Because it looked like there was no... It just looked like to me, once it broke here, briefly, nobody wanted to sell, and there was some buying. But as soon as it topped out and started to come back, the same thing flips in reverse. Nobody wants to buy now, and everyone seems to be selling. So the same thing is true both ways. Is this project going to go anywhere? I don't think so. Because you can also just compare it to the coins, compare it to the projects that have done well. I'll use Solana again, and we'll go way back on Solana. So you've just seen what VV looks like. Right, so at what point in Solana's chart was there ever a move like that? Where did Solana go 4x in a single day? One daily candle. It never did. Right? It had actual rally up, drop back, accumulate, rally up, drop back, pullbacks, getting bought. There's no example here at all of Solana going 4x in one day. And you might say, oh, but Solana's a big project. It wasn't here. Back here, Solana was 30 mil, 40 mil, 50 mil market cap, then 100 mil. Solana wasn't a massive project back then. Solana was a shitcoin back then. So, compare that even here. Like, look at these massive pumps, supposedly massive pumps. But that massive daily pump was 66%, not 4x, which is 300%. And then it didn't instantly retrace the next day. It went higher and higher and higher. And then when it dropped back to a higher level and held. So it's just really hard to find any charts where they have those big scam pumps and then actually turn into anything, anything great after. A lot of this is just normie traps. They're just trying to bait people in. Miles, check PAL. Yeah, I mean, I like PAL. I bought PAL at fucking $1 million market cap, which I'm salty about because it went as high as like 200 or 180 or something. I bought it all the way fucking down there. Sold it like here. PAL, I don't know. I guess my actions speak louder than words. So since when I bought and then sold, I never rebought PAL. Because from what I see, it fits the AI narrative for sure. Their kind of elevator pitch is sort of interesting, right? In that, this is going to be like Ethereum based AI bots and AI, basically chat bots and trading bots and essentially just another AI project. The thing I've noticed most about PAL is that it's heavily shilled online by certain influencers. So clearly they have some marketing agreement with a bunch of influencers, which isn't bad in and of itself. But it also doesn't mean that the project is necessarily going to outperform. So I'll keep it very simple. Like, it's okay. It looks okay on the weekly. It's got a high. It's got a low. It's made a new high. If it can form a higher low and actually show some signs of going up, can it then make another big push? Sure. I just don't know. Maybe like it's 73 mil market cap. I guess the question is, later on in the bull, when things go crazy, can PAL hit $1 billion? Right? Can it do that? But like $1 billion for PAL would be all the way up here. So will it go sideways and then go on this massive run? It could do. There's certainly plenty of coins that will do this. This is going to be the path for many of these projects. And it sounds crazy and it doesn't look like it can happen right now. And you think, oh, it's oversold or overbought already. But many projects will do this. Because there are projects that exist that are 50 mil, 100 mil market cap that will be $1 billion. That's a 10x or a 20x. So it's possible. I just don't know if PAL's going to be it. Because my main thing is, do they have any genuine network effects or adoptions outside of their paid influencers who've got tokens that they're going to dump, right? Because they're paid to shill it and then they'll dump their tokens. Is it going to transcend? Is it going to go beyond that and become something bigger? The jury's still out for me. But what I'm definitely going to do is look at alt. When I see something down 100%, this is going to be fucking fun. GM. All right. Let's look at what the fuck. That is a rug in 4K. Oh my lord. How does the chart look now? So there's probably some people that are like buying this thing right now, thinking like, wow, what is this? The market cap is still 371 million, even though it's technically down 100% today. Because it must have just got botted really hard on the listing. That is so fucking hilarious. Like, where did it wick to? Oh my god. I'm going to have to go to log chart for this. It went to 4... Wow. It went to 4 million. $4 million, and it's now 33 cents. And there was volume traded there. Right? There was 3.3 million of volume traded. So some people just got destroyed by botting. I'll go to the 1 second chart to see if we have any. Yeah. So look at this. Like 7,000 and then 5,000 trading in that first in that first minute. Wow. That's interesting. What is that thing? Alt layer token. So, yeah, that's funny. Gots, Ape. Check out Ape. Yeah, just lost its momentum that it had. Hasn't even managed to flip its weekly bands to green. So like this thing is just, I mean, I struggle to see how this doesn't go to new lows. If that's all it was able to do in the October-November rally, no one cares about Ape. Low, high, lower low, lower high, a lower low, another lower low, a weak bounce, right? Doesn't even break any structure. You know, weekly market structure was here, couldn't even break that. So this thing's just, that's heading to new lows. I wouldn't touch it. You know, you don't have to buy these things if nobody else is buying them, right? You can just say, nope. Taker, ATA, Automata Network. Same thing. Wow. How the tables have turned, right? There was a lot of charts looking better than they do now just a few weeks ago, but same thing. I'll not waste too much time. Clear downtrend, new low, higher low, lower high. Again, unless some miracle comes, that's heading to new lows. And of course, many of these will not go to new lows. Many of these will maybe double bottom and eventually make a new high, and then they'll start to grind sideways instead of down. But you don't want to buy these ones, because if you look at like Automata Network, best case scenario is that it reverses now, pushes up, and then has to like form a sideways consolidation before eventually going higher. But this, just look, even that, like from my, rough drawing, this is roughly the amount of time I would expect it to take to get to there, okay? Which takes you into August of next year. Like this thing might not even break 20 cents in 2024. In fact, I would be confident saying it won't. So even if Automata doesn't go lower, it's almost impossible for it to outperform other projects because it's just so, again, the chart is just broken. That's just a horrendous chart. Jolly WG graph. Slightly better. Not a whole lot better, but slightly better. To the point where you have a low, you have a high, you have a higher low. It has not made a higher high yet. You can say on the weekly closes it has. So yeah, if you look at the line chart, yeah, right, it's starting to build its way up. But this was real buying and selling. So for me, if graph can break out of here, then it's showing something different. It's showing that it might actually have some upside potential. So it's not as bad as the dog shit from before. But it's also not great. And I think for like stuff like graph, you want to just take the box method that Professor Ayush talks about and just draw that across, right? A box is just a way to visualize a consolidation or an accumulation. So when it's in the box, it can go to the bottom. It can go to the top. It can go to the middle. It can go back to the top. It's only when it breaks out of the box that it matters. Use the example of Link. You don't want to try and predict the box breaking. Worst thing you could do. Because look at Link. Right? Link was in this box all the way from fucking May 2022 until October 2023. So near enough 18 months. And when it come up here, you don't want to start buying Link then. You don't want to buy it here. You don't want to buy it there. Eventually it broke out, closed a weekly above. And guess what? It continued higher. Now it's going to form its consolidation up here and do whatever it's going to need to do. But there's a lot of coins like Graph, for example. Like Graph might be here right now. Right? And it might have 6 months more of shit. And in reality, you could do nothing for 6 months on Graph and just wait. So, for the sake of what? 50%, which is nothing in crypto. You're not going to miss that 50% upside. It doesn't matter. Because the time, the opportunity cost is huge. If it took 6 months to break out, go down, up, chop, 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 boom. Just buy it here. Avoid all this stuff. Don't tie your money up in something that's just, frankly, underperforming. Borsky, eGold. This one's going to be bad because this is a bad project. They've had to rebrand as Multiverse X. Not as bad as I was expecting. So there's quite a few of these. A very common pattern you see is these diagonal breaks. Right, so it was having this brutal grind, low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, just grinding down into oblivion. It's broken out of all that. Right, and it's made a new high. Perfect. So you're looking at a higher low to form on eGold. Where that will form, who knows? Maybe it's going to hold in this area. Maybe it's going to go lower into there. Once it starts to make a new high, that's when it can really start running. So it's not as bad as others. It's not great at the same time. Because if you take away that diagonal and you just look at it objectively here, the biggest problem is that if you just draw a box across it from the peak here of August 2022 to the lows, we're still inside that. So it's had a quick false breakout above. It's back inside. So this could also do the whole 6 months thing. So it's not a great one to buy right now. I mean, if you have whatever reason to be bullish on it from a long-term spot perspective, is it a better time to buy here? I mean, sure, if you're buying the dip from the highs and you're thinking it's going to go up more, then sure. But, you know, it's not really showing me much of what I want to see. Like your best hope would be that it does this again, right? Where it has its pump up, it flushes back down, and then away it goes, right? So you're kind of hoping that tops in, we go down a bit lower, it reaccumulates down here and then goes up. But guess what? You can just wait until it actually does that. You don't have to guess that it's going to do all this and wait for 6 months. You can just let it do that and buy the breakout. Because look how much better its chart was back in 2020 and 2021, right? It launched, it had its, it launched, sell off, very common, pretty much all projects do that. Grinds, rallies up, comes back, makes a higher low. So you have a low, high, higher low, starts to run up. Once it breaks out, away it goes, boom. And there you go, you get like a whole nice bull run. There's loads of projects that look more like this. And they're newer and they're shinier and they don't have wrecked charts and all that. So, they would be the ones I'd have my eye on more so than something like, Multiverse X. And it's always a red flag. Like eGold used to be called Elrond. And they've rebranded, changed name. It's now Multiverse X. It's not impossible. But these name changes and rebrands are typically bearish because it just means the project, they're having to try something new. They're like, the name of the project was so toxic that they had to change it. That's all it is. They'll tell you we're pivoting, we're doing this, we're doing that. No. People just heard the name Elrond and thought, what a piece of shit. So we're going to rebrand it. They'll have some reason why they rebranded, but it is just a piece of shit. Now, there's always exceptions to that rule. Like Aave, which is one of the best fucking performers of last bull market, right? As you can see here. Aave, all the way throughout here, was not called Aave. Aave was originally called ETHLend. And then they rebranded to Aave. And boom, away it goes. So it's not impossible. But that's more the exception than the rule. The Thomas Fetch, what are your thoughts? Fetch, I think, is just a bit heavy. And so I don't think a whole lot has changed since my last stream about Fetch. Right? You've got 3 different paths it can take. It can either flip this from resistance into support and hold at this level, which is the black line. It can go a bit lower, like the blue line, or it can go a lot lower, like the red line. Really, the only thing to do with Fetch is give it time. You don't need to step in and buy here. Right? You can do whatever you want. You can buy. But if I wanted to buy Fetch here, I would wait for it to actually react up higher and show a bit more consolidation. Right now, to me, it's doing what it did over here. Right? There's many points along the way. There's many points along the way of these declines where it looks like it's going to reverse. Oh, look, a reversal. Oh, look, a bounce. Oh, look, a bounce. And it just bleeds. Whereas if you wait for it to stop going down and just start going sideways, you'll put yourself in a better position. So currently, it's just kind of rolling over and grinding down and down and down. The only thing that will fix this is time. And so what you want to do with Fetch is just wait and give it time to stop going down and start going sideways. Right? If it starts to go sideways, then you're like, okay, this is now 2 months later and Fetch is no longer going down. It's actually gone sideways. That's interesting. It probably should be going down if it was going to go lower. And since it's going sideways, maybe that means it's going to go higher. So that's one to just put on your list, right? Because I do think as well, with the AI hype and the AI narrative and Fetch being a pretty decent AI coin, don't know if the project's any good, but it's certainly one of the biggest AI coins and has a lot of attention. That support is support until proven otherwise. It's holding currently once, twice, 3 times the support. So that is support. You don't want to be selling here. You don't want to be shorting here. But you also want to wait for the actual downtrend to end and for it to go a bit more sideways to see if anything's going to come of it. Silat, DOP, D-O-P, D drops. Oof. Yeah, that's not good. So, same thing, right? Making a new low is not good. So it's 2022 lows. In 2023, it went lower than that. And guys, just remember that rally we had where everything was going like this. Why the hell did DOP have a measly little bounce and then just back to fucking zero? So yeah, no, this is like abandoned project. Doesn't seem like anyone is backing this. Fan of GM Near. Near, pretty decent. Kind of the same as most of these alt L1s. AVAX did the same. You know, a lot of these, it really remains to be seen. Because again, I'll just compare, and this is your best here's your best way of viewing what's the most likely layer ones to have some kind of staying power and have a bit of continuation, right? So I'll draw the actual bear market range breakout of Near. So Near didn't break its bear market range until December. So if you compare that with any of the other L1s, the ones which we know are good, such as Solana, when I say good, I mean the chart's good, right? They're bullish by the chart. So Solana had, let's go to just get a fresh chart. Solana broke its bear market range much earlier. So it's 2023 levels. It broke here, So it broke it back in October. And even then, if you go up to the previous swing high above, it broke that one in November, and then obviously went significantly higher. So the point with this is, NEAR is something that we would call a laggard. So Solana led the move, right? Solana was over here when it put its low in. NEAR was here. Solana then made a high and a higher low. NEAR made lower lows. NEAR was still at the bottom when Solana was already breaking up to new highs. Solana clearly is more bullish. The reason that NEAR went up then, predominantly, is because people wanted to trade the next thing. They're like, oh, Solana's running, so let's bid other layer ones. You look at something like Injective as well, which was bullish all year. And Injective broke out of its bear market range fucking like way before anything else, right? It actually broke out of it in February, out of its bottom part. And then even again, as you go up to one of these highs, right, it broke those in October. And then, of course, it broke literally all-time high, which is not there. The all-time high is actually a bit higher, but you get the point. We all know what Injective has done since. So Injective was a leader. Solana was a leader. NEAR was a laggard. And so a laggard is not something that you want to have on your shopping list, really, because you have to ask yourself, and I mean, look at this, like it hasn't even come close to its August 2022 highs. So from the perspective of where did the bear market bottoming range actually begin for NEAR? I mean, you can argue that it was all of this and that we're still only not even halfway to the highs. It's not even broken out up into its gaps yet. And the reason you don't want to really look at those laggards is because you have to ask yourself, well, and this is very true of most altcoins. The question you need to ask yourself is NEAR a bullish project for the next cycle? Or did NEAR go up because everything was going up and it caught like a sympathy bid where people are like, what else hasn't pumped? Let's pump that. To me, that's what NEAR looks like. You don't want to, like, so many people will move on from Solana, they'll move on from Link, they'll move on from Injective, instead of actually focusing back in and saying, wait a minute, why were these so bullish? Like, just, again, Injective is a clear example. Why was Injective so bullish all year? To the point where it was just higher highs, higher lows all year long. And all the way to literal all-time highs. Why did Solana bottom out after FTX and then just make higher highs, higher lows all the way? If a coin is making higher highs and higher lows, it just means a very simple thing. When it pulls back, people are wanting to buy it at higher prices. That shows demand. You don't need to check the on-chain data. You don't need to be an expert of macro. You don't need to understand open interest or flows. You can just look at the chart and say, this is better than the other coin. So, you know, I'm not like mega bearish on NEAR. I know there's people talking about NEAR can be used as a parallelized EVM and can be, could potentially be used for some integrating with some part of Ethereum. I think it is taking some of the execution layer or whatever. But to me, that seems a bit like, you know, after timing, where the coin moves up and then people start to look at, why could this be bullish? And that's always a tricky one, because are you allowing price then to lead your opinion? Right? Because if it ran late, basically, if there's any coin that didn't pump until October, you have to question it. You have to. Because October came and everything pumped. But literally on the day that Bitcoin made its big move, NEAR was making a new low. And from there, it went up only. But why? Why could NEAR only go up when everything else was going up? Why could Injective go up even when the market was bearish? Why could Solana go up even when the market was kind of transitioning from bearish into bullish? That would be the question I would have. That would tell me that, you know, the big players probably weren't supporting and accumulating NEAR. Dr. GM, OTK, Octo Gaming. It's quite a nice chart. for a shitcoin, right? For a shitcoin to move the way this has moved, from just total death back into life, it's actually holding up pretty well. And this next rally, like if this second part was just a scam pump, this here is where you'd expect it to keep bleeding and bleeding and bleeding and bleeding. A good comparison of this is OTK versus GME, GMEE, which I know it had a hack, but even before the hack, it was weak. Right, there you go. Like there's GME, which looked really good, and then it just broke down and just bleed and bleed and bleed and bleed and bleed and bleed. And now it's all the way back down. So obviously, that's not good. OTK, well, it's not done that. So again, you ask yourself why. Very simple. There's more demand for OTK and there's less supply, there's less selling than there is for GME or several other projects. So yeah, I mean, to me, this one's is better than most. Better than most. Maybe they're doing some interesting things. I know it's a Solana gaming project, so maybe they're going to have some good traction there. Amir, Aptos. Yeah. Aptos is a pretty messy chart, to be honest. It launched back in late 2022. It was actually the biggest runner. If you remember all the way back at the start of 2023, Aptos was like the big mover. A massive short squeeze from $3 all the way to 20. I remember the funding being insanely negative, shorts getting blown out, but then it just proceeded to bleed all the way back down. Bottomed out where you'd expect it to bottom out, filled in the gap, rallied up, but doesn't look like there's as much bullish impulse on it now, does there? So what's Aptos going to do? Not sure. Probably go sideways for a bit and then maybe eventually build its way back up. Can it go out to new highs? Maybe, but I look at this chart and just think it's really hard to get any, just from the chart, it's really hard to get any sense of whether this is going to be bullish or not. So I would say for me, it doesn't really interest me. Al Maghrebi, Mosaic. This is the one that just keeps going up only every time we look at it. Let's see, is it still going up only? Breaking, yeah. Eventually they just run out of steam, but that's fine. It's only a 10 mil market cap coin, which for in itself is, sort of a red flag, because one of the biggest things I think is just, I don't think layer 2s are going to be as big as what people thought they were. I've gone cold on layer 2s several weeks ago, like I said, because the rise of Solana and Celestia and Sei and Injective has breathed new life into layer 1 trade plus modular. So there's different narratives that are catching fire that seem to be much more sexy to the market than the layer 2s. And so Mosaic is built on Arbitrum, and so it's an Arbitrum beta play. But I'd be like, okay, so through all that bullishness we had, November, December, January, it was able to get to what, like a 15 mil market cap? And so where is it going to go from here? I don't know. I wouldn't be particularly bullish on it, because I would think that a low cap should be a lot higher if there was any genuine accumulation going on. And I think this is indicative of the problem with Arbitrum itself. The Arbitrum ecosystem just is non-existent, right? There's the highest traded volume coin on Arbitrum is USDC, followed by ARB, followed by Wrap Bitcoin, right? Before you get to an actual altcoin, it's Pendle. And Pendle, wow. Oh, that's a 1 second chart. Wow, sorry about that. And Pendle actually looks all right. Don't know what Pendle does, but that's certainly a good chart, right? But as a whole, Arbitrum itself, it's either just going to be a failed experiment. Arbitrum will still exist. Arbitrum is still a good protocol. Arbitrum is still probably the best scaling solution that exists for Ethereum right now. But is there going to be a vibrant ecosystem of coins on Arbitrum? Probably not. That's what the market's saying right now. Vladimir, Sui, GM. So Sui I know looks good because I was looking at it this morning. Sui, decent. So weekly chart, broken out of this bottoming range that it was in. Really nice. So it's moving up now into the upper end. Holding nicely up here. Now you have to be mindful as well that this can easily be a lower high and just the beginning of a downtrend that leads Sui down into the gutter again, where it might reaccumulate and then go higher later on. That can happen. Again, a bit like, can't remember which coin it was, Fetch. The only way to know is to wait, right? You don't want to guess this. You want to just let the market tell you. So can Sui hold up at this level? Can it maybe come down to the breakout point, but no lower, right? Can Sui go sideways? Touch that, build a base there. If Sui does something like that, that should be a nice move. Otherwise, I would avoid it. I would just wait and see. A lot of these, especially things like Sui, like they're super inflated. Like the market caps and the emission schedules for like Sui here. The market caps is 1.2 billion, sorry, but the fully diluted is 11 billion. So there's only about 10% of supply circulating. So ask yourself, where's the demand going to come from? When Sui starts emitting tokens and you've got literally 9 billion or 10 billion of new supply coming in, who's going to buy it? This is obviously not how it works in reality. But if all the Sui tokens come out today, there would have to be an extra 9 billion of buying pressure for Sui just to maintain its 1.18 price. That's just not going to happen. Now, obviously, the tokens don't come out all at once, but you can check the token emission schedules on token unlocks. And my biggest thing, one of my highest conviction, just whatever you call it, ideas, predictions, thesis, who knows, whatever, is just that token unlocks are not going to be bullish in this cycle. So, fucking sign in. Drops tab, does the same job. So, Sui, vesting, and you'll see here. So, there's 2,200, so it's about it's not 4 years, that's fucking about 6 or 7 years of token emissions to come. The next unlocking event is not massive, which is happening. Oh yeah, there must be every day. When's the next big one? Here's unlocking events, you can check them. So Sui has unlocks every day. That's probably just like there you go, stake subsidy. So that's people who are staking Sui, they get paid out. That's very, very little, right? It's 400,000 a day. I mean, it's not nothing. $400,000 is still mostly going to be supply that has to be sold. But you're looking for the big unlocks. They're probably not a big unlock. Well, there we go. 3% of market cap comes out on February the 3rd. So in whatever, about a week or so, there's going to be 40 million dropped to investors. And how's the market going to absorb that? Right? And then probably next month, probably the 3rd of March, same again. It's usually the way it goes. There you go, 3rd of March, 40 million. So you can very easily estimate this. I'll just check same thing. It'll be the same in the 3rd of April, no doubt. So at current prices, every 30 days, there's another 40 million of insider tokens getting released that has to be absorbed by the market. Is the market going to be able to absorb that? Right, that's an extra, again, at current price, that's an extra 500 million of token supply and sell pressure added every year. And that goes on for the next 7 years, like we saw. There's 2,200 days of emissions left, so that's about 6-7 years. So I don't know if they'll be able to overcome that. Mojo Pin, GM, Taoyu, Taoyu, Taou. Do you mean BitTensor, no? Or do you mean a coin called Taoyu? You must mean BitTensor. So, Tau, yeah. Yeah, BitTensor is fine. I don't mind BitTensor. It's doing well, pushing up. For me, I don't want to see it go higher right away. Maybe it will, but for it to have a proper big run, I would like to see BitTensor. Well, I shouldn't delete that stuff. I would like to see BitTensor just do this. It doesn't have to do it for that long, right? It doesn't have to go sideways for several months, but I would like to see it at least come back down and have a few months like that before a breakout. That would give it a better base for a run higher. But we'll see. BitTensor has some interesting characteristics. A lot of people think it's a scam. And from, here's the play, right? So BitTensor has a real cult following. I read a lot of the comments. I look into the BitTensor maxis, and they think it's going to $1 trillion market cap. So you've got the first thing you need, which is delusion, which always helps. Cardano holders were delusional, right? Bitcoin and Ethereum holders were delusional back in the day. Any of these big, highest performing projects, they always have an element of a cult following and a community that are just totally bought in and think it's the greatest thing ever and they will never sell. That's bullish. But the question you need to ask yourself is, why BitTensor? A lot of people are comparing it to Bitcoin just because they made their token supply 21 million. Right? And they also have a mining emission schedule. But the bear case I've heard for Tau is that it's just GPU mining. It's not like there's no great innovation. It's 21 million supply, you can mine it, but it's just mined with GPU. It's not like, it's just basically a marketing shtick. And to have this kind of, to have this 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 billion project, let's even just say 100 billion, right? Because only two coins have ever broken and held above 100 billion, Bitcoin, Ethereum. So the reason Bitcoin went there is because obviously it was the first, it was the best. It was literally a revolution in money. It was a totally new, decentralized monetary system. And I don't think we need to talk too much about the innovations Bitcoin's made. None of this other shit, like, it's funny to me when people try and talk shit about Bitcoin. None of this would exist without Bitcoin. Tau wouldn't exist. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have a TradingView subscription. You wouldn't be listening to this. You wouldn't even know what Tau is. You wouldn't know what a cash is. You wouldn't know what Ethereum is. None of this would exist without Daddy Bitcoin. So fucking have some respect. But the reason Bitcoin went so big and will keep going bigger and bigger and bigger is because it's a genuine innovation. Like, it was something brand new. It's like the thing Peter Thiel says, where you go from 0 to 1. That's where you create something that does not exist and you essentially form a monopoly. Bitcoin has a monopoly on decentralized money because it's the biggest, the best. And what Satoshi created was genuinely once in a generation, or brand new, once in a century. The biggest innovation ever in money since what? Gold? And Ethereum came along, and Ethereum again introduced something brand new: smart contracts. Now you might say, oh, there was another project and it had smart contracts, blah, blah. Ethereum clearly won that, right? The reason Ethereum is worth 2, 3, 400 billion, depending on the price, is because Ethereum introduced a novel, revolutionary form of technology. Again, none of this other shit would exist without Ethereum. Solana does smart contracts. Cardano tries to do smart contracts and they don't work. Avalanche does smart contracts. Everything else you see is either a layer 1, so it's a smart contract platform, or it's built on a layer 1, like Uniswap. Uniswap could not exist if Ethereum didn't innovate the introduction of smart contracts. Whatever's built on Solana, Jupyter, couldn't exist if Ethereum didn't form the framework for smart contracts, which then Solana took and did in a different way. So And this is also, by the way, this is also the struggle of why Solana will struggle to flip Ethereum, because Solana has not revolutionized. It's not new tech. Their best case scenario is that it's better tech, which, again, the jury's out. They say it's faster, it's cheaper. Okay, cool. Ethereum's far more decentralized, which is closer to what crypto's supposed to be. Again, the jury's out on that. I'm not here to get into a debate about Solana or Ethereum. I think they're both inferior to Bitcoin, but I'll trade both of them to make money. But where are we going to get this next big new innovation? And this leads me to the point of BitTensor. The BitTensor Maxis would tell you that BitTensor itself is a brand new innovation. It's like we had Bitcoin for money, we had Ethereum for smart contracts, we have BitTensor for AI and crypto, through whatever their mechanism is. I need to do a much deeper dive, and it's going to be in one of my research videos. I am going to do one on BitTensor because I am interested in it, to see, is this real or is this bullshit? I lean towards bullshit, but bullshit can pump, right? Scams pump hardest, as they say. It's not about whether BitTensor will be, the third big innovation. I guess the third innovation in crypto was stablecoins. So you've had three true innovations in crypto: Bitcoin, Ethereum, and stablecoins. Right? Programmable money, Bitcoin. Smart contracts, Ethereum. Stablecoins, the proper medium of exchange for transferring value across the world without 3 to 5 business days and fucking fees and banks shutting you down and all that shit, right? But the beautiful thing about being in this space is there is another innovation coming. A true innovation that sticks. So you might say, oh, wasn't like crypto gaming, play to earn, wasn't that an innovation? Sure. NFTs, I get them, now that I say it, you could probably class NFTs there, but they're not really fully proven yet, right? Where's the value accrual of NFTs to the tune of 100 billion? There isn't one. The NFT believers think that, yeah, the NFT market's going to be worth hundreds of billions in future. Okay, cool, but it's not right now. So the difference of BitTensor doing a 10x and a 100x is going to be that. BitTensor can do a 10x just on hype, just having a community of fucking religious fanatics who will never sell. But it will then go down 90% and never recover. Just like many of these other, one hit wonders, flash in the pan Ponzi's that pop up every cycle. To be an Ethereum or to be a Bitcoin, to be a 5-year plus investment, you have to actually create something that did not exist before. Something new. So that's really what we're trying to find here. If you're not going to own Bitcoin, you're not going to own Ethereum, then you're trying to own something that could be that. Or you're just trading the hype. But if you're trading the hype, don't forget, you're going to have to sell because it's going to go down 99% and probably never come back. Mr. Robot, whiff. So to me, whiff is if I can fucking find it. I think whiff will probably still do okay, but I think at the moment whiff is a bit of like everyone trying to run back they're trying to run back the bonk trade again. And I mean, it probably goes higher. It's actually, to me, it's actually a better meme than bonk, but bonk has first mover advantage, which always matters. Like the dog with hat, it's far more funny, it's more memeable. People are putting hats onto everything and just saying everything with hat. I like it. I think it's funny. I think it's one of the better memes that we've had. Price action wise, I think it's a bit heavy because so many people are trying to play it, they're trying to run the same playbook, that I don't know if this is going to be the time now or if it's going to like bleed back down again, right? And then eventually go on a massive run later in the year or whenever. The jury's out for me on this. I don't know if it's going to rip to new highs. I don't have the conviction to hold whiff in my portfolio. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. I'm certainly not bearish whiff. I think whiff goes higher. But to me, it would just be something to trade. Trade the momentum. Lidge P. Is artificial liquid intelligence a good project to hold? I'm going to guess no, because it sounds like it's a fucking scam. ALI. Oh my god. No. I would say no. My instincts would tell me this is a piece of shit. So no. Tiger White, Tectum, 3rd gen layer 1 blockchain, 1.3 million TPS and soft node trademark. Even got the trademark in. The only decentralized walletless instant low fee anonymous non-custodial Bitcoin layer 2. Tectum. TET. Chart looks good. Excluding the weird glitch. Yeah, I mean, look. Launched into a low, into a high, into a higher low, into a higher high. Again, you just want to give it a few months, right? If it does this and builds a base there, can it go higher? I'm sure it can. Is it going to be the future of finance? Future of fucking Bitcoin layer 2s? I don't know. Tectum, what's the market cap? 190 mil, 200 mil market cap, 260 fully diluted. Pretty good, right? So no crazy token inflation or emissions to come. Fastest blockchain for all industries. 1 million TPS, but does it actually? Does it actually? Right? There's a lot of projects that say they do this and they don't. So, where's the proof of this? Where's the proof of this? Because Solana claims that they will get to 1 million, but it's all theoretical. Solana's like, hypothetically, we can get to 1 million TPS. You know, if this and that happens and the right things happen here and the fucking upgrades and blah. But Solana actually does 500,000 TPS. Sorry, 5,000. 5000. Which is not quite 1 million. And so a lot of these projects, that in theory they do that, but show me the proof. Because for one, and I'm not a developer, right? As if I even need to say that. I can't even get these fucking streams to work sometimes. I'm not a dev, so take it with a grain of salt. But my bullshit filter is very, very fine-tuned from years in crypto. Tell me how there's 1 million transactions per second. Not because it's technologically impossible. Where do the 1 million transactions come from? Right? Tectum doesn't have any ecosystem that I know of. It doesn't have any adoption. It's not like well known. I don't see any projects building on TET. I don't see much of a developer community. So where are these 1 million TPS? Are they in the room with us right now? Get that meme going. Because 1 million TPS is a lot of transactions. Those transactions should be on the blockchain, right? Can you see it? Is it verifiable? Can you show me a link to a Tectum scan that shows they do 1 million per second? Or is this just, no, yeah, when you get down, we will. We plan to. In future. Possibly. Probably. Shut up. Don't ask. Just buy the token. Because that's what most of these blockchains are. Like, even this here. Phantom doesn't do 300k. It doesn't. It might, in theory. But if you were living through the last bull market, all of these 1 million TPS, 500,000, 10,000, 40,000, all these great, super fast blockchains, as soon as we got a full bull and there was a lot of retail interest, they all broke. Solana broke, Avalanche broke, they got Phantom, they all got overloaded to the point where you couldn't mint a fucking NFT, you couldn't confirm a transaction on a fucking lending platform, you couldn't do a swap on a DEX, because there was like 30,000 people trying to use the chain at once and they just broke. So where are the 1 million transactions? Again, I'm not a fucking tech expert, but there's a big difference between in this test we did, it was, I don't know, maybe they have some test where they theoretically did that amount, or it had the capacity to do that amount. That's totally different to it actually doing it out in the wild. Because I can guarantee that if it does 1 million, I would know about it. Because that should be everywhere. Because no blockchain, to my knowledge, has ever done that in practice. With real dApps built on it, smart contracts actually running and processing that many transactions. Because where would they even get the transactions from? That would mean there has to be a huge amount of use, like DEXs with millions and millions of transactions going. Like, I don't see it. And to understand, just like they say, to understand how crazy this is, Ethereum does 25, Bitcoin does 7. So how does Tectum do 1 million? And then the question becomes, who cares? Right? I get that everyone's racing to have this next big, super fast, many transactions. But the two biggest blockchains are the slowest. Like, is this a feature rather than a bug? People don't seem to mind that Bitcoin's slow because it's the most secure. People don't seem to mind that Ethereum is 25 TPS. Ethereum still has 88% of all devs. And yes, I made that number up. But the number is somewhere between 80 and 90% of all developer activity is on Ethereum. I do know that. And so if all the devs want to build on Ethereum and they don't seem to care about the 25 TPS, and of course they're working on layer 2s to help it scale and go faster and all that kind of stuff, but why? This kind of constant race for speed, this is the blockchain trilemma, right? Speed, scalability, and what? Security, isn't it? Decentralization, security. But you can't fix all three at once. And I've seen so many, we fixed it, we've solved it. Okay, cool, but you're not. They're all compromising in some area. Right? The Ethereum devs have been trying to do this since 2014. They haven't solved it. That's 10 years. So, I don't know. I would call bullshit but I'm happy to be proven wrong. Mets, Injective. So, I already did Injective. But just briefly, Injective, I wouldn't buy it here. I would wait for it to form. I would wait for some more confirmation. What the fuck? Right, so the best place to buy Injective is all-time high retest. Right? If it comes back to old all-time high, retests and holds it, that's your best time, probabilistically. That's your best bet you'll have on Injective. Otherwise, you're wanting this to form a proper consolidation. Ideally, sweeping out this. If Injective swept that out, moved all the way up, false breakout, back down, into here, push like that. Oh, give me all the fucking Injective you can sell me when it's there. But not right here. If you're a dip buyer who likes Injective and think Injective's going to $100, which I think it can. I'm not bearish on Injective. If you're a dip buyer, then buying spot, right? We're not trying to time the market. Then you're buying it at 30% down, and it went down as low as, well, it went 30%, went 33. Could it go 40? Sure. Could it go 50? Sure. But if you're just buying spot on the dip, I mean, it's better to buy here than to buy at fucking 45. So that'd be my approach to Injective from a trading perspective. JC Magnet, Blur. Yeah, Blur is, I like Blur, but I'm waiting. So Blur, where's the Blur chart that I want to use? Here we go. This is still my plan for Blur. Has been, and nothing has changed. I've traded long enough to know that typically the best course of action to follow when something does a false breakout, which I said, I talked to the Blue Belts and I talked to you guys on Trade of the Day about this. Before Blur broke out, I said, expect the first breakout to be a false breakout. Done. Cool. When you have that, if there's a false breakout, then the most likely place and the best place to bid is support. And support is not here. A lot of people will try and convince themselves, oh, this is support. It's not. It might be, but it would have to spend a couple of weeks there and break out again. Sure, maybe that is support. But the actual support is down here. Blur held and held and held, and then the impulse from here took us all the way to there. That's support. So exact same thing for me. If Blur comes down, hold support, I'll bid the shit out of it, and I'll run it up to touch a new high. That would be my approach. I'll definitely want to trade Blur. I've got my alert set saying buy ? If Blur comes down into support on the daily, I'm interested. Otherwise, I'm not interested. But that's because I'm not like a Blur maxi. Right? Just what I said about Blur there, I do that with 20 coins. And I just wait for them to hit whatever level they hit. And if they hit my level and it fits my system, then I'll trade it. JK Aligula. Akash, GM. I'm going to check Akash on the dollar chart and on the Bitcoin chart. So dollar chart still looks great. Again, any of these paths can happen. I bought the other day at about 237 or 238 or something like that. Bought more spot. First time I bought spot since I bought at 55 cents back in June. If it goes lower, I'll buy more around $2. If it goes lower, I'll buy more around 140. You've got the 200-day moving average, which is going to be somewhere along here, which is now coming up nicely. So the longer AKT spends up here, the better. It's going to allow the 200-day to rise. And we could even see, if it chops around for a bit and follows the blue path, you could see a scenario where it reaches the 200-day around $2. That'd be super nice. If it doesn't, if it gets more aggressive and goes lower, it might hit it sooner. But, I'm on the lookout for... I think AKT, again, same thing. It's at support. So support is support until it isn't. So right now, take all the noise. This is daily support. Why? Because it trended up, made new high. Trended up, made new high. This support led to a new high. So until that breaks, it's support. Right? You can say, oh, well, it's trending down, it's going to trend up. But it's not. It's support. It doesn't mean you go fucking put your whole net worth in and say, this can't break, there's no way. Of course it can. Of course it could go down. It's had a big uptrend. It's been trending up all year. It's been trending up literally since the 1st of January last year. And so, yeah, of course it can drop more. But until that happens, I'm going to look at AKT and say, yeah, bullish. Now, I want to look at the Bitcoin chart as well, because the AKT has one of the best BTC charts. And this is what, at least I do. You can do it as well if you want, but I think everyone should be comparing their coins to Bitcoin because that's what you're trying to do here. You wouldn't buy a stock that didn't outperform the index. If you bought a stock and it went up 7% and the S&P went up 9% in a year, you would have been better off holding the index, which is safer and you have far less volatility, less downside risk, and is guaranteed over a long enough time frame to just go up. Same thing goes in crypto. If you're in a bull market and you're not outperforming Bitcoin, you're not doing your job. So AKT obviously all year has absolutely outperformed Bitcoin. All the way since I bought here. Up only against BTC. Bitcoin chart is looking really good. On a weekly perspective, it pushed up to these highs, took them out, reversing back. Again, still looks really good. The monthly chart just looks fucking incredible, especially if it can have a push into the end of the month. AKT is just so bullish, I want to scream. But as you'll know, I get questions about AKT all the time, obviously, because it's the only altcoin that I'm high time frame bullish on. It's not a get rich quick scheme. Yeah, it's not going to be a fucking fast pump and dump. This is like a cycle bag that is being accumulated not just by me, but clearly by many big players who we don't know of yet, but by the time they announce that they're in, you can guarantee the price will be a lot higher and we'll be in before all the hype. So I like it. I'm still bullish. Nothing's changed. But I absolutely don't trade AKT. It's not a trading coin. It's a spot bag that I want to add more and more and more of if it's at the levels I want to buy it at. And then just hold it. And hold it until 2025 or whenever. If it goes and rips into a fucking 3 weeks and it goes from here to $12, I mean, yeah, I'll consider that to be a blow off top and inefficient and I'll start selling because it shouldn't go there that fast. What goes up must come down. But the more it keeps just grinding, sideways, grinding up, pulling back, making a new high, great. Bullish. Love it. N memo, Solana. So Solana, again, Solana's really simple for me. Just don't overcomplicate it. That big black line there is the most obvious support if it does go lower. Right? Above that, we've got easy targets above. I do think, though, Solana, I've said this for weeks and nothing has really changed. I think Solana needs to build a proper base here, right? It can take quite a while to get to where it's going. You know, it did a 10x in 2023. So Solana can easily go sideways for quite a while before eventually having another move. It could even go down a lot. It could even have a deeper flush and a sideways correction and then a rip. It could also turn around and just rip to new highs, but that's not my base case. I don't think that is going to happen. I think more so it's a big. It's literally the third biggest project. I mean, BNB is bigger and Ripple and it kind of flipping around each other, but in terms of coins with both hype and market cap, it's the biggest outside of Bitcoin and ETH. So just like Bitcoin and ETH, it'll take a while to do its accumulation, and it'll frustrate people, and it'll chop them up, and it'll make them bearish and bullish and bearish and bullish, because that's what people do, right? They can't just hold with conviction. They talk themselves out of it every time it is a red candle, and they get euphoric every time it's a green candle. And this is all just the process of consolidation. So SEO, Synapse protocol, don't like Synapse. Mostly because, and maybe I'm wrong, and the chart's telling me I'm probably wrong, but I mean, it's obviously still mega bearish on the high time frames. The only problem I have with Synapse is that, one, look at the state of the chart. So simple, I don't care if this thing cures cancer. It's got low, high, lower low, lower high, lower low. To me, until it goes above here, all of this is just bullshit noise and is a lower high. The market, like Synapse, has to prove otherwise. And maybe it will. We might just go on an uninterrupted rip, and there we go, and boom. And Synapse is great. But it's not shown that to me. It tried the bottom out. You could even argue this was like barely a lower low. You could argue that was a double bottom, right? So it tried the double bottom into a lower high, went to new lows. It shouldn't have done that if there's any support. And the number one problem I have with Synapse is that it's an old 2021 super hyped up project that everyone is talking about. If you guys traded throughout 2021 or were in crypto, you'll probably remember that the whole multi-chain thesis was like one of the biggest narratives. It's like, oh, we've got Solana and we've got Avalanche and we've got Phantom and we've got ADA and we've got all these blockchains, and there's going to be people who are going to be sending their coins across them all. And that's what Synapse is, or was. It was a bridge, right? Is you can put your tokens into you can deposit them on Ethereum and get them back out on Avalanche and whatever else, and so on and so on and so on. And so, theoretically that was great. That was a hype cycle last time, but it's not anymore. Right? To me, I do know that Synapse is supposed to be something about, can't remember, I read it last week. They're trying to say now that Synapse is excellent for, can't remember. I'll have to find the tweet. But they're trying to reinvent it as something else. To me, it's got a lot of very heavy bag holders. This was shilled relentlessly in 2021. I remember this very well. There's a lot of big influencers, a lot of big traders who went super heavy into Synapse, and I can see them. They sort of pop up on Twitter every now and then, and to me, it's just like you're desperately shilling your heavy bags, is the way I see it. So yeah, for me, the jury is out still. I need to see a lot more to be proven wrong on that one. AJ, Comp, same thing really. Comp's the last cycle piece of shit, which had its run, and it's now just it's just, look at the state of it. Look at the state of it. It's just a piece of shit, right? Token wise. Compound, the protocol, works perfect. It's great. They're pivoting now to do some real world asset stuff. Excellent, cool, great, fantastic. But the project's fucked because the token's fucked. People just don't want to buy coins like this because it had its low of 2020, right? And then it went lower in the last bear market. Again, simple. You don't buy stuff that's doing this. You buy stuff that's doing this. And so there's loads of projects that went like that in 2021, and now they've gone like this. They've made a higher low, but Compound did the opposite. So just for that alone, I have zero interest in owning Compound. Bhutan, GM, I would request Mana on the 2nd of Feb. Apple Vision Pro will be released, which is another step into the metaverse. By the way, AI, good AI projects, and some VR kind of gaming type projects should do pretty well with this Vision Pro release. Why? Because that's what we do. We just latch onto any fucking narrative. Does the Apple Vision Pro make any of these AI or VR or gaming coins better? No. But the market doesn't care. It's all narratives. So, Mana, is this going to reignite the metaverse, basically, as you're going to say? 2021, when the meta was announced, they rallied really hard. Yeah. I mean, if you remember all the way back, when Mark Zuckerberg made one of the worst decisions in corporate history and renamed Facebook to Meta at the absolute pico top of the metaverse hype. Is the Apple Vision Pro going to be enough for a random crypto metaverse shitcoin to pump? No. Outside of like a day trade pump, maybe, but I don't know. I mean, is metaverse going to be a thing, or was it just a flash in the pan? I don't know. I'm bearish on metaverse because I lived through 2021. And I remember everyone saying, we're all going to be living in the metaverse. No one's going to go outside. They're going to sit at home with their VR goggles on, and they're going to have a beer in one hand, and they're going to be at a virtual strip club. And then they're going to go to their job, which is a virtual job. And they're going to see their virtual employees and their virtual co-workers. And we're going to fucking do everything virtually. And it's like, no, your brain's fried because you were fucking locked up for too long during COVID that you thought that everybody else was never going to want to leave their house. Humans don't want to live in the metaverse. I think that's pretty fucking obvious. And even if we reach some future where VR is taken over and people do a lot of things online and it's a lot more virtual, I'm sorry to say it's not going to make your internet shitcoins pump, because that's not it. That's not it, right? So here's Mana is a good example of expectations versus reality. So what markets do, markets price in the future, right? So the market is a discounting mechanism for the future. Meaning, what the market does is it takes in all known information and the expectations people have of the future, and then it gives a price to that. So, at the peak of 2021, all that shit I just said about everyone's going to live in the metaverse, you're all going to jerk off to fucking OnlyFans girls with your headset on, and you're never going to go and see a real person again ever in your life. That was the prevailing narrative. That's it. And you're just like, if you don't own land in the metaverse, have fun staying poor. Well, good luck with that. I'd rather own land in the real fucking world, like all the millionaires and billionaires are doing. They're not buying land in fucking Decentraland. So, but that was the expectation. So, when you have price going to that level, that's because the market is saying, we believe that Decentraland Mana is worth $5.50 if it fulfills that vision. That's what the market says. It doesn't mean it's done it now. This is why most people fail in markets. They think that it has to achieve it first. No. And this is a good lesson for you with the AI hype that's coming. None of this stuff has to achieve anything it says. The market just needs to believe that it's possible. And so that is the whole metaverse wrapped up in a nutshell. They all jerked off to the idea of everyone living in the metaverse, and they said, this is going to be amazing, this is going to be big, this is going to be the fucking next big thing. So, all else being equal, for Mana to get back to all-time high, that has to become a reality. So then ask yourself, how close are we to everybody living in the metaverse? When was the last time you even heard the word metaverse? It's been 3 years since this. It's not been 3, is it? November 21, 22, 23. It's been 2.5 years since this. And I would argue metaverse is further behind than it ever has been. I don't see any innovation. I don't see any great new fucking breakthroughs in metaverse. Albeit, I will admit, I'm not exactly a fucking metaverse enthusiast, so I'm not as deep in the weeds as some people are. But for the market to again price Decentraland at $5.50, that has to become real. People have to actually live in it. People have to buy the land. People have to put their headset on and go to the fake strip club and go to the fake office and go to the fake fucking grocery store and buy fake goods, which just is retarded because real people can't live off of fake goods from a fake grocery store. They need real stuff. And if everyone just stayed inside all day, like these people think it's going to be, then people would just die. Right? We have to fucking live our lives outside of the four walls sometimes. And so I don't think it will ever get there, is the short answer. And because I don't think it will ever get there, I don't see metaverse as a good bet. I guess if there is any, if metaverse does end up becoming a real thing that's mass adopted, it's going to probably be newer projects that come along and do something that actually fits rather than, what people thought in 2021. It's a bit like, Litecoin. Litecoin's a good example. At one point, people thought, and the market thought, Litecoin's better than Bitcoin because it's cheaper and it's faster. Right? That's when people thought this, 2017. Litecoin's better. And then 2021, Litecoin could be coming back. But look at Litecoin. Litecoin's not better. It's not better than Bitcoin. But people thought it could be. Bitcoin Cash. It was a fork of Bitcoin. Oh, it's better than Bitcoin. You're going to be using Bitcoin Cash to buy your fucking Starbucks. Nobody is. Feathercoin existed as well. Because this is how retarded the market gets. You had Bitcoin, which is Bitcoin. You had Litecoin, which is lighter, right? So it's got more, it's faster and it's cheaper. And then it goes, what's lighter than light? Oh, Feather. Feathercoin. This is even faster and even cheaper. Feathercoin doesn't even exist anymore, practically. So if something does come along that's better than Mana, it'll probably outperform it. But I don't think that Mana or Sand or these ones, I just don't think they're going to be it. G+, Helium. Helium's good. Nice chart. Deep in. Genuine. This will be one of the projects probably that I do some research on as well. Helium has a genuine potential to disrupt an industry. Because what it is DePIN. So decentralized physical infrastructure networks. And what that means is you can do mobile communications in a decentralized manner. So instead of having to use Vodafone or Verizon or T-Mobile, you could get a phone on the Helium network. And you can do this right now. For $20 a month, you can have your data and your call plan on Helium. So whether this actually breaks through or not, it at least has potential to disrupt a multi-billion, probably trillion-dollar industry and capture some market share. Will it? I don't know. I tend to think that if it gets any real traction, the big players are going to try and put their foot down and go and cry to daddy government and say, oh, this is not fair, you need to clamp down on them. Well, it remains to be seen what happens with that. But a lot of these old centralized architectures and these centralized authorities, they get disrupted eventually. Because the more centralized you get, the slower you become. The more corrupt you become. You can just look at any central bank. You can look at any financial institution. You can look at any social media. Right? The more you trend towards centralization, the worse it gets. The more unfair the outcome becomes. So Helium has both a good narrative, DePIN. It's definitely time for DePIN. It's got a good chart, right? It's clearly broken out of its bear market lows, and it's whether it's a 1% chance or a 10% chance, it does have a chance to actually reach millions, if not tens, if not hundreds of millions of users, because everybody has a mobile phone, and all it would take is kind of the viral word of mouth to spread it. Hivemapper is another one, which is like a mapping service. Also built on Solana. The token is called Honey. Honey like what fucking Winnie the Pooh eats. And that's the best way of describing honey, I guess. And that could actually be something interesting as well, because it's got a really interesting road in through drivers, right? There's hundreds of millions of people who drive for a living. Maybe 100 million. I don't know how many people drive for a living, but delivery drivers, Uber drivers, right? Couriers, all different types of truckers. Anyone who drives for a living can buy a Hivemapper, I don't know what they call it, but they can buy like a Hivemapper dash cam, I think it is, and they can do in real time, up to date every single day, mapping, which massively disrupts Google Maps and Apple Maps. Because if you ever go on Google Maps and Google Earth and you search for a location, it'll always say at the bottom, picture from June 2023. It's always out of date because Google can't map stuff every single day. But in theory, with Hivemapper, you can. Because you don't have to have a network of Google drivers. You know those little Google cars with the fucking camera on top? That is so capital intensive. Google has to hire people, get their cars, fit the cars, and pay those people to drive around and map it. So they only do it once or twice a year. But if every Uber, just imagine a world where every Uber driver has the little Hivemapper cam on it, then every street, pretty much every street on the planet, could be mapped at all times, as recently as this morning. So there's a genuine, again, I don't know if this will happen, but the potential of that is fucking huge. So those are far more interesting. Pepe hands, XVS, Venus. So Venus is like I think Venus is the Yearn Finance of Binance Smart Chain, if my memory serves me correctly. It's either the Yearn or the Aave of BSC, which is now Binance Chain, I think, or BNB Chain, or whatever the fucking renamed it. I don't know if it's a good project or not, but it's broken out of its bottom range, right? It's made a low, then a higher low, but really a double bottom, and then a high. So you're waiting to see, does Venus make a higher low and then another high? So if Venus can do that, well, then it could be something. But like many of them that I've said, you kind of just need to wait and see with that. Godly Anatoly, how many have we left to do? Got a bunch. RLC. Yeah, so RLC's been performing actually really well, hasn't it? Yeah, it's been, at least in the last week when everything else was pretty shit, RLC was breaking out higher. But to me, it's really simple. RLC is now like, just imagine it being in a massive accumulation range, massive box here. And so it's right back up at the top corner. Will it consolidate up here and then break out? If it does, the breakout's interesting. Otherwise, I would just wait. Again, a lot of these, you have to just give them time. Because like I said, when it's trapped in this range, you know, what you're actually doing is, if you're buying here, you're buying resistance. Because if this resistance holds, support is all the way down here. And so if the resistance doesn't hold, then support is much lower. And in the overall box, you want to allow it to form more. So don't buy resistance, buy the breakout of resistance if it's able to do so. BNB for Black Edge. Same thing, right? Pretty much the same thing. Binance Coin, I should say. Again, it's in this box here. I mean, up to the wick technically, but even just if you look at where it's traded since 2022, it's in the process of trying to build and form some kind of accumulation range. But again, you would have to see BNB being able to break out of that for it to have a run. Can it then go to all-time highs in the next bull? Possibly, if Binance has managed to retain market share and not lose it. You know, Binance is really under pressure because they've lost their leader. And so the main reason why I'm not bearish necessarily on BNB, but it's hard to be as bullish when they don't have CZ leading them. He founded the company. He was the heart and soul of Binance. He's gone for 3 years. Barred for 3 years. So to me, that would mean the jury's out on BNB. Alex, Guten Morgen. What do you think about Sol for holding spot long? Does it have any advantage against ETH, or is there any particular reason you've decided to hold both? I don't hold. I've got a very small amount of Solana on a Phantom wallet, but I'm not holding much Sol at the moment. I'm Bitcoin and ETH and AKT. But I do think, I mean, if you just go bottom to top of the next bull, is Solana more likely to outperform Ethereum? Probably. But I'm not holding much Sol at the moment. Like I said, I think Sol needs several more weeks to cool off. But I do think Solana will outperform. I do think it will outperform. But you also have to remember that everyone hated Solana a few weeks ago. Now everyone loves it. You have to wait for those late buyers to feel pain. King of the Jungle, CeeLo. Uh, yeah, not much of this, right? Again, if you're trying to be as bullish as possible, it's broken out of the diagonal downtrend. The bands are green. It's got above the 200-day. But again, its rally off the lows is just so weak. I just look at this and say, okay, the whole market rallied, so CELO took a chance to pump up a bit, but it just got sold into. Why is CELO not up here? Because there's other coins that are up there. Why is CELO down there, but Helium is all the way up here? Why did Helium break out of all that? Why did it break its downtrend cleanly and is all the way up here? Because it's a better project in terms of who's buying it, the accumulation process, and what people want to be involved in. So that would be my view on it. Shiny Rock, GM. Pepe, what specifically price action do you indicate for us ready to make a move? Yeah, Pepe needs a long time now. To me, it's failed its attempt to be bullish in late 2023. So Pepe probably has to go. I drew a couple of paths. I don't know which chart it was on. I drew a couple of paths a while back where if it isn't able to break out of here, I mean, it still could, but it's, looking less and less likely. Then it probably just needs to go sideways for a while and then eventually build its way back up and run later in the year. It doesn't look like there's a whole lot. To me, it's now looking to starting to look more and more like this, where it ran up, had some hype, but then just bleeding. So, yeah, for me, Pepe just needs a lot more time. Ninja, Solana's done, Blur's done, Nikolai. Sir Bigfoot, Pith. Pith starting to rise back up. But here, I still think the path for Pith is probably going to look something like what I'd drawn, where this is going to be not the rally, but probably setting up its range, and it goes back down, forms it. When it truly breaks out of that, that's when I'd be more interested. Maybe it goes higher from here. I'm bearish on that. I think that usually after launch, they come down, they have their first bounce, people get excited, they go lower, people get less and less excited, they get really bearish, and then eventually it breaks out of it and it rips hard. If you want a good kind of comparison, go and look at AVAX when it launched. AVAX is a decent one to look at for that, all the way back over here. Right, here we go. There's always a couple of times after its launch when it looks like it's breaking it, right? Bouncing up here, bands go green, down and down and down and down and down. Eventually, it then breaks out of all that and into a proper uptrend. I just think Pith needs more time. I could be wrong, but I think it needs more time. Wilhelm, GM, WorldCoin. Yeah, same thing. WorldCoin is not bullish at these levels. It had its breakout, and even on the weekly. So it's broken the weekly market structure here. At least. Well, it's still got this week, but if this weekly candle closes, down there it's broken. But, that pump fully retraced. So when a pump fully retraces, it's not in a trend. WorldCoin would have needed to stay up here to maintain its trend. That trend's gone. So it had a chance. It blew its chance. And now, when something goes up and all the way back down, it doesn't go like that. Generally. When something goes up and pulls back less than where it came from, then it can make a new high. That's a trend. But if it goes up and all the way back, and in this case even below that, then it's likely to just have to accumulate, consolidate, and then start to actually trend up again. So WorldCoin can probably go a bit lower, pop back up, start to form a base, reclaim that level, make its way up, and break out later. But I think it has to do all this grind first. And of course, it might do none of that. It might just be totally fucked up tokenomics, which it is, and dog shit and just bleed. You never know. So I would just wait with WorldCoin. Reality 1, OTK is done. Kyle, AVAX dipped to 100-day moving average and a 45% decline. Yeah, AVAX, I mean, I'm not as bearish on it as some L1s, but part of me also does think that, AVAX was making new lows, right? It was making new lows as recently as October. So again, why did AVAX just grind down only whenever Solana was making higher lows, when Injective was making higher lows, right? Because AVAX is the same thing. It's a layer 1. And so it had a really big rally up. But I would need to see a lot more to be convinced that AVAX is not just going to keep bleeding. It would need to have a strong reaction, a retest, hold, and then start to actually build its way up from there. So I think AVAX needs time. FA, Pith and Render. You suggested 2. The rule is 1 only. AJ, GM. NOS, NOS. Nosana. What does this thing do? This is a wild chart. Absolute dead, right? Literally dead, where nobody was trading it. All the way into a fucking insane move up. What does this thing do? So, I wouldn't have a handle on this at all, obviously with everything that's happened. What does this thing do? They must have a good market maker. So it's on Solana, powering the AI revolution, cost-effective GPU grid, open compute. So it sounds like similar to what AKT or Render does. Put your idle compute power to work. Yeah, it's basically the same as AKT. Chart looks fine. I mean, the thing, I just look at this and think, isn't this just insiders pumping? A super low float, I mean, it's crazy. This is really crazy because it's already done 100x off the lows, which is wild. So I would ask, why was it doing this? Why was it so dead? Why was nobody even interested in moving it? To me, it looks like a small number of people control the supply, and so the market would not move until they decided. And so the difficulty with that is, if you're not an insider, you can just be getting dumped on, right? Because if a small number of people control the supply and then it goes 100x, they can just sell now forever. If they got all their NOS down here, they're just always in profit. They're in profit here, they're in profit here, they're in profit here, they're in profit all the way. They could just, the risk I see of coins like this is that could just be the next year for NOS. So I'd have to do a lot more due diligence on it to change my mind on that. Money Mat, DeSci, look at track. Origin Trail. Yeah, bouncing back nicely from an attempt to sell off. It's quite a nice weekly reversal candle. But it's really just setting up, essentially for Origin Trail. There's still big resistance overhead up here. So you want to see it continue to hold and strengthen up into this area. And if it does, that breakout could be really good because it has made a low, a high, back to a higher low, up to a higher high. So yeah, Origin Trail could do pretty well. DeSci is as we talked about yesterday, it's a sector that I think can run. Mako, yeah, RRP on TradingView, I've got that, thank you. Dodi, Top J, this is Top Jeet, right? The Indian Tate on Twitter. So yeah, I mean, it's just a meme, and so the meme is only as strong as the guy they're memeing. So I mean, there's not really much you can say. The chart on these doesn't really matter. The only thing that's going to matter is attention. So I mean, there's not a whole lot else to say. Tony, Liquidity. Yeah, Liquidity, DWF coin, not looking great. Pump, lower high pump. Liquidity needs to do a lot. I've talked about this now for many weeks, and it's got a low here, it's got a high. It needs to go up and make a higher high at least above that one, and then a higher low, and then it could start to build into something bigger. But again, jury's out on that. Doesn't seem to be much support. It's really struggling at the 200 day here. I think the project, I know Luke likes the project, and Liquidity and LUSD, their stablecoin, is apparently very good and truly decentralized and all of that. But chart-wise, it looks like a bit of a mess to me. If you think the project is good, it's going to survive, and it's going to thrive, then you're not going to get a much better entry than the 200-day. I would wait, right, because it's currently below it. If it has a weekly close back above the 200-day, and really, you could just wait for this to break. Like, you don't have to guess. There's an interim high here, right? So this is the high before the push down. There's another one, but I would prefer this one. And price is currently below the 200-day moving average, which is not good. But you could just wait for it to break back above that and have a weekly close above there. Then you could consider this to be a 200-day moving average hold, which it failed to do back in May, right? It went below it. So you don't. What you're risking by buying here is you're risking this, where it drops down and has to chop around again. You don't want that. But if it reverses, comes back above, well, you could say that should be the low. And if you want to buy spot, then, I mean, you're not going to get a lower price than holding the 200-day. So that would be one way to play it. Jamie, Nakamoto Games. Yeah, nice move up. One of the better coins this year. Traded it briefly. Pretty good. You know, like the thing with Naka though is it's been up only all 2023. Consolidate, trend up, consolidate, trend up, big trend up. Question is now, where does it go? To me, it's like many of these, it's had its big run, so I would say it needs to consolidate. If it can consolidate again up at these levels, then the next breakout, it could go for another run. But I think it needs a few more weeks of consolidation before it'll make another move. Goose, Matic. Yeah, it's such a bad coin. Not a fan of Matic. Yeah. This is one of the worst charts in crypto. It just looks dead and fucked. And keeps just getting bounces sold into. And I mean, if you're looking at this is like a massive bearish pennant, where essentially it's just making lower highs and higher lows, right, to where it's compressing. But that usually is an indication of trend continuation. So if it's trended down into a compression, that typically breaks to the downside as continuation. So something big needs to happen for Matic to flip that trend. It needs to start coming up here and make a new high. If it does that, then it could develop into something better. Otherwise, I'd be bearish. Easy Dollar G, Ori chain. I mean, it's okay. There was a big price floor from 2021 that it seems to be above, but it looks to me like it's going to go there. If it holds that, makes another high, right? So if it holds this low on the 200-day moving average, that's a pretty solid floor, you would say. And then if it makes a new high, you could say pretty confidently at this point over here that the bottom's in, but it's got work to do before that becomes reality to me. AVAX for Fred is done. Jakob, GTAI, GT Protocol. Okay. Is that? Okay. So has it only launched like today? No. Which one are you looking at? Oh yeah, it's a 15-minute chart. Okay. So is it the same one? This doesn't look. MaxC maybe? That doesn't look great. Bitmart? Why? What the fuck? Why does every chart look fucking totally different? I mean, So I guess this is it. It's only just launched, so it's impossible to say. You'd have to give it time. I don't know where you found that chart. Maybe you're on like log chart, but anyway, it's far, far, far too new to really do any TA on it. Serec YFII. Here's an old shitcoin. DeFi money. Yeah, dreadful. Not a good project. I mean, to me, this is like one of these death spiral coins. You get a high, you get a lower high, lower high, lower high. So again, it needs to do something to really break that trend. So it needs to start making higher highs and higher lows consistently to then have any hope of making big moves. Sauce, ETH. I did ETH at the start, I believe, didn't I? Aramis, AGIX. No, I think it's the KuCoin chart has the most. Yeah. So, big move at the start of the year. Down into a higher low so far. So it looks good from that perspective. I think it needs to continue to reaccumulate. But when the AI hype gets going again, this thing has proven that it can pump hard. I would wait for it to get above, 36 cents, towards 40 cents, and then trade it from there. Otherwise, obviously, you're at risk of it just bleeding down if it's just a pump and dump. Tijdane, Jito. So, Jito is the exact same as Pith, right? Here was the path I drew on Jito a while back. You're going to have the first little rally up here that people get excited about, but that's not the one. Comes down, comes up, comes down. It's, again, takes time, probably a lot of time for it eventually to break out of all that, and if it's going to run, it'll be later on in the year. Aussie Injectives done, Cobra Girl, altcoin requests only. Hussein, Frax. I like Frax, what they do. I hate the chart. I like Frax as a project, and they seem to build cool things and innovate, and their founder is based and all this kind of stuff. But to me, it's just trapped. It's just trapped in this box. It needs to break out of it. Simple as. And it's still a long way from that. It needs to move up. Of course, it'll probably reject there initially. It needs to do all this. And then maybe can it run after? Possibly. But for me, Frax is just, yeah, a lot to do in it. Bill Ben, Kudos. Talked about Kudos a bit in trading chat yesterday. Kudos is fine, right? But it's also got all the hallmarks of just a hype pump and dump, right? It only rallied, just like I've said with many of them, it only rallied in November when everything was rallying. It then went up, straight up for like 10 weeks in a row, and now it's starting to pull back. So the problem with that is the inefficiency goes all the way back down. And now this is very common, and then you have a massive move after. So best case scenario, this was what you call a test pump, where it pumps up first to test demand, comes back down, reaccumulates, and then has a big move later in the year or next year. That's possible. I could definitely see that. But for me, I think it's going to probably fully retrace its move first. Teddy, high frequency trading. Yeah. My opinion, it doesn't matter. It's nothing that concerns you. High frequency trading is just, as the name suggests, it's programmed automatic trading that happens at millions of trades per second, or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, depending on the industry. It's just basically what market makers do, and specialist trading institutions. Big Profits Huntress Tia. So Celestia had its big run up from $2 up to 20. So yeah, like Celestia is at the later stage. It's it's topped out. It's now weakening. It probably has to go down a lot, reaccumulate, and then go higher later. That's the most common typical path that these take. And it leads to a lot of very short-term pain for holders. And eventually it might go higher. Victory, Alchemix, another 2021 shitcoin. Yeah, I mean, this thing is just so far away from being anything even remotely bullish. Just keep it simple. It needs to get above that high. Otherwise, it's just going to be trapped, bleeding forever. Right? So you want to just wait until it actually makes a new high there. And then maybe it can go higher, but I wouldn't be overly bullish. Manichi, Mantle, MNT. So Mantle, it's a pretty nasty reversal. And fully retraced that last move. So the uptrend that Mantle was in is now over. And so it needs to go into either a downtrend until it finds a floor and goes up again, or needs to confirm this as support before going higher. But in both scenarios, uptrend's over, just wait. Good morning. I'm only doing alts. Watermelon, PRE. Pre-search. Well, don't need to say much. Just a total pump and dump. QTF for Laddie. Rough. That's bad. That looks like it's going for new lows. Pith done. Wix. Chia. Chia doesn't exist, I guess. It's not on Deck Screener. It's not on TradingView. Mohammed, say. So say, like I drew out here, I still think this is the path for say. It needs to have a significant pullback before I would have any interest. It has to pull back, then accumulate, and then if it does, go higher. It might reverse from here and go higher, but it looks like its uptrend is broken. And it's probably going to trend lower for a bit. Chaser Rose. Oasis Network. Again, a nice move up, but its uptrend is broken, right? Any of these that pump and retrace the whole thing, they're far more likely now to be in a downtrend. If to trend back down, reaccumulate, go again. But the problem with something like Rose is it's now back inside this range. So this whole thing becomes a false breakout above here. So you have to be mindful of that. It's opportunity cost with these. If you're holding Rose, you're probably in for a lot of pain in the short term. If you're bullish on it, it probably ends up going higher eventually. And again, it's the same thing. If you're buying spot and just holding and you have conviction in the project, now is not a bad time to buy. Look how low it is. If it goes to all-time highs, it's way higher. But be prepared for a lot of short-term pain. Raphael Fetch is done. Dutch Region. Hope you're very well even after this one. Rocky. Okay. This is going to be terrible, I guess. Oh my Lord. Lord have mercy. This is, if you look up in the dictionary, pump and dump, this is what you'd see. So yeah, I wouldn't touch it. Louis, Ron, GM. Ronan. There we go. Up only. So that's quite interesting. The way I would look at this is, obviously I don't know much about the projects, you'd have to research it, but it's got it's got low, high, higher low, higher high. So I'd be waiting for a higher low to form. I'd like to see this like pull back and then go higher. If it keeps pumping from here, again, you need to know, if you're in the project, you've invested, you understand it, then sure. From a trading perspective, I'd need to see a solid higher low form before I would buy it. Soren, ETH-BTC. Yeah, I talked about ETH-BTC earlier. I mean, I think the bottom's in on ETH-BTC, but I'm not. Yeah, I mean, I think the bottom's in on it, but it's going to be slow moving. Another Ron Dunn. Martin Copper, Unibot. Unibot's really simple to me. If it's below kind of the $80 level, then I don't want anything to do with it, right? Because it had there. That's the other day when I dumped my Unibot. It's this exact reason. So it had a move up, right? It broke out, fell back inside. It then fell back below this level and below the $80 entry. And so it's retracing all that. Unibot can be totally fine and can do great things, but when it falls back in here, it's going to have to lead to, at the best case scenario, some reaccumulation. So I think it's going to be a slow mover. Pepe Hands wants to see the real Bitcoin. This chart's going to be rough. This is just what you see, a dead meme. Meme's dead, right? Like I drew here, probably dead, then random fucking massive pump, and then bleed. I just think that meme is gone, done, dead. FX Tradeism, and anyone else who asked, if you want to put the questions into Ask Michael, put them in there. But I'm only doing alts today. We've already gone 2 hours. So that's it. GM, thank you for joining. I'm going to go get some dinner. GM. See you tomorrow, 5 p.m. UTC for Casual Fridays. If you got any questions, tag me and Ask Michael. GM, thanks for joining. Talk soon. GM.